Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really delighted about today's guest, Vince Villani, and he's an entrepreneur at heart. He achieved financial freedom through real estate, and I'm really happy to have him on the show. It's a sponsored episode, and to his journey, his mindsets, and all the factors that contributed to living the life that he's now living. Vince, welcome.
Chris, first off, thanks so much for having me on. I've listened to the show a few times, and what you're building is really something special. And hey, listen, I know how much effort it takes to orchestrate these types of conversations. And I got to say, with the amount of conversations you have releasing an episode every single day, it's insane. But I'm excited to be part of it. For anybody tuning in, just do me a quick favor. Leave a 5-star review so Chris, Dr. Lou can keep bringing conversations like this to more people, because it's difficult too. So I already left mine on Apple Podcasts, so join me in doing so. But yeah, Chris, excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much, and I appreciate the shout out. And briefly chronicle your journey. I know it, and for the audience and listeners who are looking to achieve what you've done, how did you do it?
Yeah, so let me start here, right? So you know how, Chris, you know how a lot of 9-to-5 professionals or first-time investors or first-time entrepreneurs, they want to create like a scalable income stream, like a passive income stream, so they can finally quit their job or just reinvest in real estate. But where they keep hitting walls and seeing challenge is trying to figure out how to get into real estate without risking their whole life savings, or actually generating enough cash flow with it so it really impacts their lifestyle. Usually what they end up trying is they buy like their first investment property, and they might even land that first investment property, but they can't really make it to a second or third because they can't make enough cash flow to get back their time, and they can't grow without spending another $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. I guess what I do is I help those people launch cash flowing Airbnbs fast without buying real estate, using what I like to call the freedom rental framework. And that way they can make an extra 5 to 10K per month on autopilot, buy back their time, which is really what we're doing this for. But that's not really where it all started for me. Similar to you, I'm from the healthcare field, and I was a medical sales rep, and I was doing okay in the world of corporate, but ultimately I listened to the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I was always so intrigued by real estate because as much as we work, we always recognize the fact that, hey, I want to be in control of my time. So I thought that the way to it was traditional real estate investing. And what ended up happening was I bought my first investment property. And even though on paper it was destined to be a very nice property that had a decent cash flow margin, that ultimately didn't happen, right? I spent my whole life savings on it in my 20s. And then even though it cash flowed on paper, it just like each year I would have to funnel all that money into expenses in the property, and I was left with nothing. And even worse than that is it got to the point where I had bad tenants, and the property had rodents and all this like roaches, mold, like all this stuff. I can just go on about these like crazy stories, but it just made me realize, me sitting up at night, one night, like stressing out about this stuff, I don't think this is the right path. If like, it's not making money nearly as quickly enough as I'd like, and B, I'm just losing my sanity in the process. Ultimately, I heard about a model known as rental arbitrage or Airbnb arbitrage, which allows you to leverage properties without having to buy them. And that's basically what we did. Is we would go to a landlord, we would rent a property from them. With their permission, of course, we would then list it and outfit it for short-term rental, for Airbnb. And that allows you to collect the difference. And that ultimately was the model that I dove into and realized how quickly scalable it was, because, hey, I don't need another $50,000, $60,000 to buy another property. I could just sign another lease, get some furniture, and get up and running, and I could just grow as quickly as I want. So that ultimately was what pivoted me from working 9 to 5 to eventually just doing real estate full time in about a year or two.
Fascinating. And I was talking with another colleague over the Memorial Day weekend, and we were talking about how in your early days, it's painful, but you learn a lot through what you were describing, the tenants, toilets, and the trash. But ultimately, there's better ways to make money. And so one thing with Airbnb rental arbitrage, what is the fastest way to get started? Is it through an apartment, or is it through a landlord's? Talk about how you start to get into it.
That's a great question, Chris. As a matter of fact, anyone who's looked into Airbnb arbitrage is usually conflicted between, do I go single family homes and do I go apartments? And here's what I typically advise to somebody who's just starting out from scratch. And actually, let me explain it through my journey. I started with houses, right? And here's the thought process behind it. I only have to sell one person working with me, right? It's the landlord. If I go to the landlord and I say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I'd like to rent a property from you. And if I convince that landlord, or at least show them the value of working with me, if he says yes, I get the deal, I move on, I get rolling. And the other component of that is typically a house. It's a 2-3 bedroom, it's a larger private space. It'll sleep more people, therefore might make more money on Airbnb. That's what I did for about my first 19 units going live. And I think that is a tremendous beginner strategy, right? But here's where the conversation shifts into what you were saying, which is, okay, houses versus apartments, right? Think about it this way. In order for me to get to those 19 houses, I had to go to 19 individual landlords, get the individual buy-in from them in order to land the deal and get this up and running. And that's a lot of work, right? You go to one landlord, you set it up, you do the furnishing, you get the deal, et cetera. And then if you do it again and you replicate it, it just tends to get very tedious because I have to repeat that over and over again. So about a year into my journey, that's when I reached out to my first apartment complex or group of apartment complexes. And one of them got back to me and said, hey, I'd like you to take 7. So I took the 7. So in that one handshake, I was able to add on an additional, let's do the math. If the average revenue is about $3,000 a month per unit, I was able to add on 3 times 7, 21 grand per month from that one conversation in that one handshake. So the answer in a nutshell, Chris, is like you can scale much more quickly with apartments, but it's not always the best beginner strategy because now it's a little bit more of a complex cycle of I need to sell more people on it. I need to have more conversations. Whereas if I just went the single family home route to start, I talked to one guy, he says, yes, I'm good. Make sense?
Yeah, it's all about scalability. And the other question I have for you is with your approach, is it local? Is it national? How do you, because if you landlords in person or apartments, how do you go from local to national?
Great question. What's funny is I think most people, Chris, can find an opportunity within a 1 to 2 hour radius of them, right? Mm-hmm. I think when people hear Airbnb, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I need to go to a vacation rental market or I need to go to a major city. But if you take a step back, right, there are really 2 questions that you can ask yourself before you dive into the world of Airbnb. The first is there really nobody around me that's crushing it right now? Is there really nobody around me that's doing really well on Airbnb? So if I were to, let's say I live in a rural area in Kentucky, right? And I pull up the Airbnb app, chances are you're going to find 3-4 houses where you're like, okay, this guy's got to dial down. He's making some good money. Chances are there's always somebody in every market that figured out how to make it work. So why bother trying to reinvent the wheel or finding the secret city of Atlantis when you could just figure out what works in your backyard and roll with that, right?
Yeah.
And then the other side to it is often we overlook a lot of the reasons why people book a short-term rental. It's not just because they want to go to a beach town. It's sometimes because I have a hospital nearby and it's a travel nurse or they're visiting family, or there's a college nearby. They're visiting students, their friends are visiting each other, or there's local events, there's sporting events, there's all this types of stuff. So moral of the story is there's usually a lot more reasons than you might think that people would book an Airbnb near you, because the intention of the platform is not to always to just go on vacation. It's also to just live like a local in a new area. So moral of the story, more often than not, you can find a lot of opportunity to generate income on this platform somewhere near you.
Yeah. Interesting. And the other, I know for the audience listening, it's for a lot of the viewers and listeners, they're doctors, lawyers, dentists, and this idea of scaling their time is very attractive. How do you, when you're approaching landlords or these properties, what should you be keeping in mind in terms of just like lease-wise regulations, stipulations, and what should they be keeping in mind when signing these leases?
Yep. And that's a very common question too. First off, regulations is always step one, which is I want to at least find out, is it relatively allowed in the market that I'm targeting, right? Now, this is not legal advice, but if I look up the regulations in the particular city that I want to target, and it's literally a nightmare where it's, okay, the property owner needs to be their primary residence and they need to be on site, and you have a minimum of 30 nights and all this other stuff. It's okay. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to try. But more often than not, most cities just require like a basic permit. It's $50. You file it, you're done type thing. Now, putting that aside, then it comes to the approaching a landlord conversation, right? And I remember the first time I did this, I called a landlord and I'm like, hey, my name is Vince. I'd like to rent your property and sublet it. And they're just like, dude, leave me alone. But here's the thing is when I realized my experience as a landlord, like a regular long-term landlord, had a lot of challenges. If you focus on that and then how you can solve those challenges as an arbitrager or an Airbnber, then it makes the conversation 10 times easier. So let me give you an example. Chris, you're a landlord yourself, right? Like you have, yes. So what keeps you up at night? It's evictions. It's tenants that don't pay on time. It's a person that keeps the property a mess, or it's getting a call in the middle of the night about the leaky toilet or a leak in the ceiling. Or if you want to hire a property manager, it eats into your margins, right?
Yeah.
So those are all the things that keeps landlords up at night, right? But if you go to the landlord and you say, hey, I'm literally taking all those things away, now they want to work with you. Like, for example, if I'm going to rent the space to do business, then that means rent is paid on time every single month. That means the property is kept immaculate because I need it to be clean in order to run business, and I have a cleaner there every day. It means the property is going to be passive because I'm dealing with the management, not you. And it means I'm the last tenant you're ever going to have. It's a dream come true. So when you present it that way to a landlord, they not only want to work with you, but in many circumstances, if you're going to sign a 2 to 3 year lease, they'll give you 1 to 2 months rent for free, which is what happens to me almost every single transaction.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting. And you talked about the local markets. The other question I have for you is, what do you do in the event, for example, here, like, for example, some of my properties are in Houston. Right now, there's not very many regulations, but there's certain talk that now you're going to have to file a permit. And what happens if certain places, they say no Airbnbs because of the parties, etc. How do you handle that?
Yeah. So regulations are, here's the thing is, before you enter a city, you usually have a rough idea of either A, do they make your life difficult if you want to launch an Airbnb? And B, do I have to worry about this happening in the future? And here's the thing is, look, we all know how government and legislation works. Does anything ever happen overnight? Not really. Usually we'll see it from a mile away, like a year out. And you'll see that it's proposed legislation, and then it'll take another year or two before it's actually enacted. Now, of course, everywhere's a little bit different. I'm not going to say that's consistent across the board. The moral of the story is most of the time you have a lot of lead time if you need to expect that something like that might happen. Make sense? But from a regulation standpoint, we like to just focus on cities that are usually very favorable towards short-term rentals, which are most. If you think about it this way, there's 16,000 cities in the US. I can name on one hand the ones that are like a definite no, but most others have some sort of way to operate. Yeah.
And then a follow-up question is talking about, how do you build out your team and how do you manage? Because if you have hundreds or thousands of Airbnb rentals and all these tenants or all these issues come up, how do you handle that?
That's another really good question. When I first started in this Airbnb space, actually, I'm going to tell you a funny story, is I learned about arbitrage. I have a business partner, his name's Adam. We did this together. And our very first couple of units that we launched was in a major city. And I remember we drove out there, we closed the deal, we get it set up, and we're just like, man, like it's going to start raking in right now. Our lives are going to change forever. And the very first weekend we went live, we had an incident where we did have a group of people like attempting to throw a party in our unit. And I was like so stressed out and things like that. And I was like, I never want to deal with this guest management. I don't want to be up on my phone ever again on a Friday night at 2 a.m, texting people, things like that. So part of that, if you're listening and you're freaking out, part of that was because we were totally new at the time and we didn't realize there were very simple ways to screen people on the platform. So that never, literally in my 2+ years of doing this, that never happened again. But with that being said, it made me realize I don't want to create another job for myself, Chris. I don't want to create like an income stream and a real estate portfolio that I have to twiddle my thumbs on and answering messages all weekend. So what we learned was there's two things you can do to just totally automate this business model, right? The first is you automate through software, right? So what do we need? We need cleaners, we need guest experience, right? There are plenty of softwares in place that you can plug into Airbnb now, just because it's such a dominant platform that allow all of that stuff to be completely automated. Let me give you an example. There's one of the softwares we use, it plugs into our Airbnb. It's called Turno. Our cleaners get notified automatically of bookings. They have to upload like a checklist every single time they do a clean. Anytime a guest requests early check-in, late checkout, they get notified, etc. So it's all completely automated. And then I just talk to them if I need to. Then the other side to it, though, is you need to make sure that people can interact with your guests. Hey, where do I find the toilet paper? Hey, where's the TV remote? All that stuff. So what is pretty amazing, probably didn't know this, is you can hire virtual assistants, like real people overseas in India, the Philippines, etc., for pennies on the dollar to work full-time hours and just handle all that interaction for you. As a matter of fact, most of you who have stayed at an Airbnb, try calling the host. I guarantee you it's not John or whoever the host is. It's probably somebody overseas. And you can hire them very inexpensively to just get back almost all of your time.
Yeah.
Those are the two beautiful ways to automate it. And then there's some more advanced tools like pricing and things like that. But for the most part, if you can automate those two things, you just got back a majority of your time. And now this is genuinely making money while you sleep.
Yeah. And now we talk about just creating passive. Talk about like the margins you have with this new arbitrage system and some of your successes.
Yep. So there's another common mistake that I notice from people starting out, which is they want to find properties that they have this expectation that, like, I want to find Airbnbs that are going to make $1 million. They're going to cash flow $8,000 a month, and I just need 2 of them and my life's going to change, right? Now, do they exist? Are they out there? Of course. But is it likely that you're going to get that on your first go round? Probably not. So here's the thing, Chris, is like most folks who want to achieve financial freedom through real estate, they really only need 5 to 10K per month to do that, right?
Yeah.
At least at first. Because once you get your time back, you could probably grow more quickly, right? So the minimum requirement that I say a quote unquote good Airbnb arbitrage deal will have is about $1,000 to $3,000 per month in cash flow, right? Now, I've exceeded that. I've had many people in my community exceed that. But the thing is, if you can meet that minimum requirement, you really only need 3 to 5 of these to change your life. So now, why is this important? Why am I going down this rabbit hole? Because in most markets, if you try to find that magic 10K per month property, you're not going to find it. But to find 1 or 2 properties or 3 properties that make 1 to 4K per month, way more attainable, way more realistic. So that's usually the margin that I like to look for. And then when you start pivoting into bigger, larger apartment deals or like really high revenue vacation rental deals, that's when you can find the 4, 5, 6K per month cash flowing units. Make sense?
Yeah. So I know so final question is for the listeners, do you primarily focus on Airbnb, or is there like VRBO or different websites, hotels, or booking? Talk about why you chose Airbnb.
That's a great question. Moral of the story is we do at scale advertise on multiple platforms, but I really don't think you need to do 80 to 90% of our bookings still just come from Airbnb. And here's the simple reason why. It handles almost all of the marketing for you, right? It is the most widely used short-term rental platform. And as long as you understand how to select a good property and market it the right way on the platform, it will do a majority of the work for you. And that's why, as a brand new first-time entrepreneur, first-time investor, it's such a great passive model. Because if you were to do like Amazon FBA, Chris, or drop shipping or any of that stuff, you've also have to learn to be a master marketer, and you have to learn how to understand all that stuff. Whereas I could just learn how to have a good listing on Airbnb, and that platform will take care of the rest for me. There's other reasons we can talk about why it's one of the better platforms for this model, but that really boils it down, as it takes care of a lot of that stuff for you. Make sense?
Yeah. And how can people connect with you and follow you? You mentioned you have a community as well, and learn from you.
Sure. Yeah. Appreciate you asking. So, Chris, one of the things I love about you and this show is you're always showing up for your audience, looking to give them value, and that inspired me to want to do the same. So I wanted to do something more exclusive for people that are listening on this show. What I usually give everyone, what I want to give everyone listening is something that I haven't really offered before. So I usually reserve this for actual clients, and I'm going to give you what I like to call the cash flow quick start kit, right? So this consists of two things. But before I tell you what it is, just let me explain who this is for. Okay. So if you're a 9 to 5 professional or you're a first time entrepreneur and investor and you're looking to build 5 to 10K per month through real estate without having to buy properties, then this is for you. So this will save you a lot of months of wasted time. So you're probably stuck in like research mode. You've watched 38 YouTube videos on real estate and you've maybe even considered Airbnb before, but you're asking yourself, like, where do I start? What market do I pick? Or how do I find properties that'll actually make money? And because of that, you're stuck, probably not taking much action, and you're missing out on real cash flow you could have had. So what you need is a proven step-by-step system to follow, something that'll actually show you how to choose a profitable market and launch your first listing fast. So first thing I'm going to give you, I'm going to call it the Airbnb Market Launch Blueprint. It's a 5-step shortcut that shows you exactly how to find high cash flow markets and listings near you, even if you're thinking, yeah, my city probably won't work. It doesn't matter. This cuts through all the noise, wipes out the guesswork, and gives you total confidence in where to launch so you're not wasting time in the wrong market. So this is something that I wish somebody handed to me on day one. And then the second thing I'm going to do for you is something I only do with my private clients, people who usually pay thousands to work with us one-on-one. But I'm going to bring it to the table, and that's called the Airbnb Game Plan Session. So it's the first thing I do with every single client when they come into my world. It's a 45-minute deep dive session where we look exactly where you're at right now, and we help you build a customized plan towards launching your first Airbnb, right? I don't really offer this to the public ever, but if you want access to this cash flow quick start kit, just connect with me on Instagram. My name is Vinny, Vinny, BNB like Airbnb, and send me the word quick start FFP for Financial Freedom Podcast. So once again, if you want the Airbnb Market Launch Blueprint and the Airbnb Game Plan Session, just DM me the word quick start FFP for Financial Freedom Podcast on Instagram at Vinny, VINNY, and I'll personally send that over. Sound good?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. We've had a lot of real estate investors and with just like different models, and it's really great to have you on to describe yours, and keep up the great work.
Really appreciate that. Thanks so much, Chris, and hopefully this brings some value to your audience.